Hey, my name is Armando Mates, and we're going to look at the Philippines' rich history of colonization. Tracking all the way back to 1521, Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan went to the Philippine Islands on a Spanish expedition, landing on the island of Cebu and claiming the lands for Spain. After his arrival, he set up friendly relations with some of the local chiefs and converted them to Roman Catholicism. Eventually, Magellan was killed by the natives, led by a local chief named Lapu-Lapu. Over the next few decades, other Spanish expeditions were sent off to the islands. In 1543, Ruy Lopez de Villalobos led an expedition to the islands and gave the name Las Islas Filipinas after Philip of Spain to the islands of Samar and Leyte. In 1570, the encomienda system was introduced by King Philip II. He distributed lands in Cebu to loyal Spanish people. Encomenderos had to protect natives, promote education, and help missionaries convert the natives to Christianity. Spanish rule in the Philippines was interrupted in 1762 when British troops invaded the islands as a result of Spain's participation in the Seven Years' War. The Treaty of Paris in 1763 brought back Spanish rule and the British left in 1764. However, the brief British occupation weakened Spain's grip on power and sparked rebellions and demands for independence. About a century later, on April 21, 1898, America declared war on Spain as a result of America's support of the ongoing struggle by Cubans and Filipinos against Spanish rule, and the mysterious explosion of the battleship USS Maine in Havana Harbor. The U.S., led by Commodore George Dewey, defeated the Spanish squadron at Manila Bay on May 1, 1898, a war which is described as a splendid little war. As a result, on June 12, 1898, Emilio Aguinaldo declared the independence of the Philippines in Cavite. However, their dreams of independence were crushed when the Philippines were transferred from Spain to the United States in the Treaty of Paris, which closed the Spanish-American War. Although the U.S. defeated the Spanish in the war, the Philippines, also Guam and Puerto Rico, was sold to them for $20 million. After the signing of the peace treaty with Spain in late 1898, the U.S. gave Cuba its independence but kept the Philippines. Philippine nationalists were outraged and sparked a bitter and controversial conflict called the Philippine War. The Filipinos, who were seriously outgunned, adopted guerrilla tactics. The U.S. Army responded to their tactics by placing peasants into reconcentration camps and declaring entire areas battle zones in which no distinctions were made between civilians and combatants. At least 4,200 American and 16,000 Filipino soldiers are thought to have been killed in the fighting. Emilio Aguinaldo was eventually captured in March 1901 and eventually pledged allegiance to the United States. To run America's new possession, President McKinley implemented a policy of benevolent assimilation under which the United States would control the Philippines temporarily while it oversaw the transition to self-rule and independence. The colonial administration, headed by future President William H. Taft, set up local governmental bodies and a system of universal public education, but did little to reform the land tenure system, which gave a few wealthy landlords control over the rural areas where most Filipinos lived. Filipino nationalists suspected the United States of postponing independence indefinitely while exploiting the island's economic resources and using their country as a military base. Philippine nationalist Manuel Quezon reached a breakthrough when Roosevelt signed a bill that made the Philippines a commonwealth until 1946 when it became independent. As a result, Quezon was elected president. World War II interrupted their journey to independence. During World War II, Japanese airplanes bombed American military bases in Manila. Japan claimed to have liberated the islands from the tyranny of the Americans, but ended up causing something much more exploitive. Guerrilla groups formed to harass Japanese forces. MacArthur and the U.S. Army returned to the Philippines in 1944. After a bloody battle in Manila, the islands were declared liberated once more.
Softening up Luzon, preparatory to landing, a carrier task force of the Pacific Fleet in the Philippine Sea carries the air war to the enemy. Navy Hellcats and Helldivers trained their guns on Japanese ships in Luzon waters near Manila, capital of the Philippines, in the teeth of murderous anti-aircraft fire. Machine guns rake the decks. Bombs score near hits. Japanese ships twist and turn in the attempt to escape. Inland, guns blast airfields around Manila. Following these attacks, heavy American forces landed on Luzon Island. in the battle to liberate the Philippines.
Filipino guerrillas on Luzon, joining up with General MacArthur Jenks, taking the oath of allegiance and receiving American arms. Fighters with intense hatred for Japs, many of their comrades are already on the battlefront. The civilian situation is desperate, particularly for women and children, but they're cheerful under hardship. Food at last after days of starvation. As MacArthur drove on...
The Republic of the Philippines became a sovereign and independent nation on July 4, 1946, under the Treaty of Manila. Under the 1947 agreement, the United States was permitted to operate a naval base at Subic Bay and Clark Air Force Base outside Manila, the largest American overseas bases in the world, and essential to the U.S. military's Cold War strategy in Asia. The United States continued to keep a close watch on the Philippines' domestic affairs.